point. So without further ado, I am going to bring to the stage one of my favorite people in the world, the one and only Dr. Barrhonda White, Master Certified Coach. Yeah, she's a, a big deal, a big deal for sure. And why this is special to me is if you know anything about me and my journey, I am the Six Figure Quitter. I am the author of The Six Figure Quitter, the book. And about 6 years ago, this month, just shy of 2 weeks, I bet on myself and God and decided to take my talents into the world of entrepreneurship, full time entrepreneurship. But I did not do that without first enlisting the right support and accountability, some non judgmental support and accountability. And that came in the form of Dr. Barrhonda White as my life coach. Barrhonda, I cannot thank you enough for your yes. Not just for your presence in my life and what you mean to me, but just for your yes, because I know you are busy, busy.
As are you.
Yes, yes. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And, when it comes to you, it will always be yes. So just know that. Just know that.
Back at you.
Yes. Once upon a time, you said yes to me, right?
Yes,
So there we go.
yes, for sure. So I just scratched the surface in talking about, you, your titles, and all of that. So I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to my audience.
Oh, well, thank you. I am, I'm a mom. I believe I'm on this earth for two reasons. One is to be a vessel for my daughter to be here on this earth, and two, to pour into others and to be in service to others and help them to be ready for their proud moments. I'm a continuous learner. I have 5 degrees, which is ridiculous at this point, but it is one of my motivators just to continue to learn. And just want to ensure that I am equipped to fully be in service to those that want the help and the partnership in their lives. I'm based in Virginia, and I have 22 years of corporate experience, 18 years of leadership coaching slash facilitation experience.
Mhm.
I also teach, help others through teaching at the graduate level, leadership skills, as well as leadership coaching. So, continuous learner, and I love to work with others that want to continue to learn, for themselves. The last thing I'll share is my personal mantra is live with no regrets. And it informs how I be, how I move, the decisions that I make, and all the things. So thank you again for inviting me in to be with you. Very honored for this time. And I will say, I just want to give you your flowers, just knowing your journey and where you started and where you are now, the fact that we're having this conversation and all of your achievements and accomplishments to date. I am so proud for you. And I just want to make sure I put that out there. So
Thank
thank you.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I receive all of it.
Yeah.
And so this is probably something that I have envisioned probably for a couple of years now. But for me, things are not about just opportunity, but it's about timing and opportunity, right? And so when I thought about not just wanting to acknowledge my quit versary this year, but wanting to do something a little bit more involved, and that included or that involved me, making a month out of it. And so not just um, making a social media post and say, "Oh, it's been 6 years since I took the leap," right? Another another year in, and I'm still here. And so I decided to, at the end of the month, I'm hosting a virtual book discussion for those that have purchased the book and have read it, to talk about it like a virtual author talk while I'm still on my physical book tour. I thought I would do something for my virtual Six Figure Quitter family. So then there's that. And then there's the series where I'm bringing on amazing people in my network that align with my methodology, my actual blueprint that I talk about in the book, that I felt have great insight and perspective that those that are tethered to me and that are on a similar journey like might appreciate. And so you absolutely came to mind. And if I didn't know how, I was going to figure out a way to get you to get you here. And this is important to me as well because since I worked with you, and this was 2018 that we worked together. And since then, I've taken the leap. I have worked with been in a number of different like programs, but for the most part, they've been business development, right? But what I found being a certified and credentialed coach, that in these digital marketing streets, we all know that anybody can label themselves a coach, but there is an art and science to coaching. And so not all coaches are created equal. Let's just say that, right? And so I am very conscious of and respectful of the title, knowing what it takes to become certified and credentialed, of calling just anybody my coach. There's pseudo mentors, there's advisors, you know, strategists, what have you, but few coaches that I have engaged with in a capacity where I'm fully vulnerable and transparent. And so you got me in a season of my life where I was at my wit's end. And I literally said, so I know you're an executive coach, right? But you do, at least you did back then, like you offered like some semblance of like life coaching, right? Which is what I felt like I needed, but I probably got more than that. Because I'm sure I got all of who you are as a phenomenal coach. And in that season of my life, what did it for me was just feeling like, I have had enough. Something's got to give. Like I am crumbling by the day. And if I don't do something different, this is going to become a combustible experience. And I knew that that wasn't going to be good for anybody involved, especially me, right? And so I didn't want that to happen. And so by God's grace, there was somebody that we knew mutually. And I just happened to ask, hey, do you know any life coaches? And you are the one and only person that they offered up.
Wow.
And you had availability for your girl. So and we took it from there. So that's kind of where I want to start the conversation. I wanted to give the backstory. And so when I posted on Facebook, I shared that about this particular conversation that we were going to have. I shared that like I've talked about you over the years, like in random posts. I hired a life coach. I worked with a coach. I had a coach too. A coach helped me free myself, all of the things. So you kind of been like this mystical being, like playing in the background. But now here you are front and center. And so with that, I know it's probably hard or probably intriguing for people who know me as Danielle the coach. They think of coaching, they think of me, right?
Right.
But who is Danielle as a client? And not many people can speak to that because not many people have had that honor of me entrusting them with what it takes to coach me. So that being said, do you remember what do you remember about our very first session?
So one, I will claim that my memory can be special at times. It was a few years ago, so I do have some memories.
Sure.
But in terms of like chronological order, I might be off a little bit. But when I think about when we first started working together, I'm thinking about meeting in Starbucks. Believe you were working in DC and you were rushing to get back. I think that maybe there was a little bit of delay. So, you came in feeling that stress of, oh, I got to get to this session. But even when you first sat down and took a deep breath, there was just an aura about you. And it was clear that you were going through a crucible moment. You mentioned the word combust, like you knew you needed to do something because otherwise you were going to combust. From the seat that I was in, I was like, okay, she's going through something. And I always believe there's a reason. Things happen for a reason. They happen when they're supposed to happen. They don't happen when they're not supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. And so that moment in time for you, the observation was that you were going through a crucible moment that served as a nudge for you, like a spiritual nudge of, hey, it's time to walk in your purpose.
Yeah.
And so it was just cool to for you to allow me to be a part of that point in your life. And I remember, you just exploring, your the things that you're passionate about and prioritizing, trying to prioritize those. And it just warmed my heart when you came to the conclusion that it's coaching, right? And look at where you are now, right? The other cool thing that I did not realize or remember was when we started. You mentioned 2018. 2018 is the year that I made my leap as well. So technically, you were one of my first coaching clients. When I went full all in my coaching business, I was coaching part time before, but 2018, March 2018 is when I left and started my practice. Um, so I let go of the golden handcuffs, back then. So this is making it even more special, just knowing that we both were experiencing a crucible moment,
Mhm.
at that time.
For sure, for sure. It's hard for, and I know the people that I tend to attract are similar to me in spirit, in grit, in hustle and grind, um, and just in like ethic, right? And so it's hard for somebody like me at times, or it has been traditionally, to
Yeah.
ask for help because I'm a natural problem solver. I'm
Hmm.
always solving problems, right? And so there's not a problem that I'm presented with that I never think that I can't solve. It's just that if I don't solve it in the amount of time that my ego wants it to be solved, then that's where that's where there starts to be some friction, right?
Right.
So for me to break down and actually ask for help, and especially from a perfect stranger. I didn't know you at all. I had never heard of you before. I just trusted the referral from somebody in my, a mutual contact that we have, and went from there. And so it just knowing how vulnerable I was in that season. Um, it, this could have been a couple different ways, right? Depending on like how you showed up and held space for me. And so I wanted to say that because I know that there are some people out there who are feeling the squeeze, but also feeling the discomfort of availing themselves in a vulnerable, transparent way to get the help and the support that they need. Like, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, right? It's
Yeah.
worth it. It's
Yeah.
so worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could say there are two things on that. One, there's strength in asking for help. And sometimes we need a
Mhm.
reminder of that,
Mhm.
right? Somehow the narrative of asking for help is a sign of weakness. I say it's a sign of strength. It's a sign of brilliance, right? Efficiency. It takes a village, right? It takes a village. The other thing too is a phrase that I love, and I forgot the original person.
Mhm.
But so I will say I'm not claiming that this is mine, but I say it a lot. Growth and comfort can't sit at the same table.
Mhm.
And so when that crucible moment, when you realize you're going through a crucible moment, that's an invitation to get uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
put that comfort away, right? Go sit at another table, so that some really brilliant and cool things can emerge for you. And you
For
did just
sure.
that.
For sure. Thank you. What do you think? What if you can recall? I know it's definitely been a minute. The years are starting to add up at this point, right? So I don't fault you at all because some things come back to me in spurts too.
Mhm.
But what might have made you say yes to me as a client? Because it's not guaranteed, right? That there's a fit when we have the chemistry call.
Yeah.
Um,
Ah, well, it started with the fact that you wanted to help, right? You chose for yourself, hey, I want different. I'm not sure what different will look like, but I know
mhm.
I want different, and I know I need to ask for help. So starting there, I think in a coaching relationship, what's critical is that the person receiving coaching, they really want it, right?
Mhm.
They have to make that declaration for themselves. And then also, that there's a commitment to follow through and to put in the work. You and I had a conversation about all the ingredients that would be, needed, right, for a fruitful coaching engagement. And hearing that, you're like, yeah, sign me up. So, I think that was a key component. but then also like I just felt a connection with you, and I perceived that you felt a connection with me. So chemistry is so important, right? And I remember feeling like, wow, it would be an honor to partner with this beautiful human being, and to support their journey. So I remember that's what was coming to mind.
Got it, got it. Like likewise.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was surprised or not. Let's talk about the elephant in the room as coaches, right? That you were a Black woman.
Hmm.
Knowing on the being on the other side of it, and having just made the decision to pursue a career in coaching myself, learning that at least back then, most coaches were said to be middle-aged white women that either worked or used to work in HR.
Right.
Right. We're none of the above, right? I don't know if you worked in HR. You might have that background, right? But just to know that, luck was on my side. I probably should have played lotto at the same time. I started working with you, to actually find a coach that looked like me, culturally speaking, and just to know like how much of a diamond of a find like you were, especially that many years ago. Coaching has, I think, become more of a household term now. It's a lot sexier now, but back then, I know nobody in my sphere of influence was talking about coaching, not one person, not
Oh,
before I started talking about it. And so like that, it was serendipitous for a number of reasons for me, also. And it's just like, yes, you're willing to help me? Yes, please. When can we meet? Right. So I'm thankful for that, yes, back then. So the premise of part 3 of this series is to talk about planning your six-figure pivot like a pro. And this is important because in my blueprint that I talk about in the book, um, the six-figure quitter, the entrepreneur's guide to transitioning out of your 9 to 5 without regret. Step 3 in the process is to plan. And I tell people all the time, anytime I talk about quitting anything career related, I recommend that you keep your job,
mhm.
until you have a solid plan and you also have proof, right?
Yeah.
But before all of that, it's the planning part of it. Like, my recommendation is that you don't quit without a plan. And furthermore, I never have to tell anybody to quit because the people that are divinely assigned to me are already thinking about it, right?
Mhm.
My goal is to support you with, I know you're already at the edge of the cliff, you're looking over it, you may even be doing that double Dutch rock. My hope is that the wind doesn't catch you before we meet and I can give you a parachute, right? Just so that you can have as safe of a landing, as predictable of a landing as possible. Although we know that entrepreneurship is a beast. It
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
not for the faint of heart. And no matter how much you try to predict, there is so much unpredictability, if that's even a word,
Yeah.
in this space. Um, so the planning part of it, and I thought about you for this particular step because that is when I think at the point when I thought that I think I know what I want to do, but I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. I
Mhm.
have this 2 hour commute each way, working 9.5 hours. By the time I get back to Richmond in the evening,
Yeah.
whatever I said I was going to do, that I meant well, if it's not life and death, I'm probably going to kick the can down the road just because I'm physically exhausted,
Mhm.
mentally, spiritually exhausted as well. And so I knew that I needed some accountability, to hold me to what I said that I wanted.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't, another year would pass and I would be just as miserable as I was in that season. Um, but this is where I think the plan kind of picked up speed when I called in, reinforcements and someone with a clear head that didn't have the emotion behind and the angst that I carried. Like, you were able to be that stoic version of me that I normally am for everybody else,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, so let's talk about, you mentioned it earlier though. So you transition out of,
Mhm.
your 9 to 5, a traditional 9 to 5 career. What mindset do you believe is essential for somebody that's preparing to pivot?
Yeah. Yeah. So one, I'll say I'm a single mom, And I was living in fear. Like I had this dream to go out on my own and have my own, business for a long time. But what was holding me back was a few things. One, I think culturally around values of, keep that good job and, make sure that, you're responsible, a value around responsibility and family. So, you know, one, it was like recognizing what was holding me back was really important. Another thing that was holding me back was just, from an emotional perspective, fear. And I could double click. There were, many sub bullets that contributed to the fear, but that was holding me back. So then having a crucible moment, I was like, all right, I need to figure out how I can convert this fear that's holding me back into fuel that's going to propel me forward.
Mm.
So it starts with a mindset shift. Okay. And so when I decided, all right, I'm going to convert that fear into fuel, I made a declaration. And I remember this was Q4 2017. I said, by the end of 2018, I will be coaching full time, whether internally or externally. And what I realized is once I made that declaration, it was like just putting it out in the world and the universe, higher being hearing it, things just started to happen. I felt like I was in flow. So, so it's going to start with the mindset shift. It's going to start with the belief shift, and then be declarative about it. And then once you're declarative, then like you said, have that plan, right? When you make that declaration, that's essentially your North Star. And then work your way backwards, right? What needs to be true for me to be living this North Star, for me to be living this declaration for myself, and make it visible. Some people like to be creative and create a vision board. Some people want to be, very tactical and pull out a spreadsheet, right? But in some way, whatever way feels natural, make a plan. And that plan needs to be very specific, needs to have some clarity about like, what do you need to learn? Who do you need to know? What do you need to do? And then when you're going to do these things by, how will you know when you're successful? How will you know when you've completed these things? So capturing that and then working that plan. That's the other part, right? You can come up with a plan, but if you don't take action, it's just a dream. It's still a dream, right? But you got to take action. And that brings back, hey, it takes strength to ask for help, right? So have that accountability partner, whether it's a coach or it's a colleague or a loved one. But that's really important too. That accountability partner, but also a cheerleader, right? We're human. We have so many different emotions. So have the self-awareness of what type of support all in all you're going to need before you embark on the journey.
There is something that you did during our coaching engagement. And when I say coaching engagement, for those that are listening that may have never worked with a coach before, the engagement is over a span of time if that is the agreement that you work out with your coach. And that is what I personally recommend. Yes, you can have coaching can be effective in one sitting, but it can be life-changing over a series of consecutive sessions with the same coach who is supporting you and holding that space for you while you're working through whatever that you're working through and growing through as well. And so in our engagement, I'll never forget, we switched spots. It wasn't a Starbucks this day. We went to the Capital One space at the mall, right? And I think, so one of the things that I tell my clients all the time, right? Sometimes it's before they enroll, and sometimes it's like during as a reminder. It's like most times clients don't want to come to a call with their coach having not done what they committed to doing the last time that we met.
Yep.
So with that coaching offers you, legit coaching offers you baked in accountability, especially the way that we're trained, right? As coaches. And so with that, I never left a session with you without having thought through my next steps and what I was committing to doing. And even though I think we might have met every other week, and in the grand scheme of things, you may think like, wow, every 2 weeks, that seems like a long time. When you got life happening and you're adulting, those 2 weeks come at you fast. And
Yes.
you walk away from the session thinking like, oh yeah, I got time. And the next thing you know, it's the night before your meeting with your coach, and you haven't even started your assignment yet, right? And so I had a number of those occasions just because life was a lot in that season, which is why I invested in a coach in the first place, because I knew that if it was just me that was holding me accountable, I would have given myself too much grace. And that grace would have hindered me from being in the right places at the right times in alignment with what God had for me. And so this one particular day, evening that we were meeting, we met at the coffee shop and at the mall. And I think I was supposed to be looking up the programs, figuring out what my top picks for coaching programs is. I knew I wanted to be a coach. And so, like you just said, the process, the plan, right? Know what you want and then reverse engineer it, right? So one of the things that I knew I wanted to be a certified coach. I could have just woken up the next day and said, I'm Danielle the coach, right? Because you can. Coaching is still not a regulated industry. So there's a lot more freedom and flexibility than like the therapy and the counseling space, right? But for me, that wasn't enough. Credibility was important. Like pivoting into something brand new, I want to be able to stand flat-footed and have some certainty and some confidence about what it is that I'm doing, even though I now know that I already have the gift. So that being said, one of the things that I needed to work through was, well, what programs am I interested in that I want to apply for, or just pay my money to sign up to be certified? And so, of course, me being the high achiever that I am, I think I might be getting ahead of myself with the story, but of course, some of my programs of interest weren't the ones that you could just pay money for and show up. They require applications and admission and all of the things. But before I even got to that, I still needed to figure out which programs were of most interest. And so one of the things that you did that I have embodied in serving clients, and it has been game changing for them too, is you said, well, you want to do it now? And I'm like, wait, in the session? Right? And you're like, yeah, you want to do it now? And I think you may have had like an iPad or something. And I don't know if I had a laptop. I don't know, because if I came from work, I didn't have a laptop. But whatever we had, you rolled up your sleeves along with me. And it brings tears to my eyes like this many years later, because in that moment, it's just like, oh my gosh, I feel so supported right now. Because it's one thing to help me think through what my next steps are, but it's just like, no, like that was a way of saying I got you without saying I got you. And if I ever doubted it before, in that moment, I knew you had me, right?
Yeah.
Because now I don't have to go home and it's not one more thing on my list. Like we're knocking this out in this, at least getting the ball rolling, right? So I don't have to start from scratch. And that's one of the things that so we talk about in society, right? Hurt people, heal people. I say great leaders make great leaders. You know, ineffective leaders potentially create other ineffective leaders.
Fortunately.
And so in that moment, like it crystallized something in me. And that's something that I will always hope that my clients feel at some point in our time together, if it supports them, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a client that I had. She had been writing a book for some time. The book, she started it, she stopped it, she started it, and she stopped. And this is several years ago, right? We were having a session, and so we talked about what her next steps were, what she was committing to doing, or like what was in the way. She's like, oh, well, I just gotta pick up my manuscript. I gotta do whatever. And it was just a matter of her like literally opening the thing up and doing what she needed to do. But I knew that there was some resistance, because if it wasn't, it would have been done, right? So I pulled a Barrhonda and I said, you want to do it now? And she probably looked at me just like I looked at you, like a deer in headlights, like, wait, what? What just happened? Are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, right now. Do you want to do it right now?
Right.
He did. And I have you to know that book was released not long after our
Oh,
time together,
that
after
is,
being on the show for so long.
oh, that's amazing.
Yes. And
That's,
it all that moment, that coaching move came
yeah.
from you. It came from you.
Oh my goodness. You know that you call it a coaching move. There have been many, many like master coaches and professional coaches that have poured into me. And, one of the themes that I've learned from them is the importance of partnership. And that's exactly what it is, right? When in a coaching relationship, it's a partnership, right? With a shared investment and helping you to achieve your goals. So yeah, that's how I thank you for allowing me to partner with you, in that moment, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Look at me now.
There you go. Oh my goodness.
Yes, yes. So, from your vantage point, what would you say is the biggest difference between someone who actually takes the leap, like out of their 9 to 5, especially in the full-time entrepreneurship, versus someone that wants to do it but doesn't?
Mm, faith,
Mm,
belief, which I think are cousins. Um, self-awareness, commitment. I mentioned like the being declarative earlier.
mm-hmm,
I would also say once you do make that leap, there's another mindset shift, right? From it's just you just move differently when you make that leap, especially if you're leaping into your own thing.
mm-hmm,
As an example, when you are internal and for some, like, and I just want to be clear, for some that is for them, that's walking in their purpose, is being very influential and impactful within an organization, which is great. um,
mm-hmm,
for those that want to make a leap outside, especially if they've had a lot of experience internal, they're used to the consistent paycheck, if you will, and they know what they're going to make each month
mm-hmm.
or every 2 weeks. If you choose to make a leap outside on your own and become an entrepreneur, you may not have that consistency. So it's shifting, allowing yourself to shift the mindset around, okay, I'm expecting consistent income to, I am going to put in the work to receive unlimited income, right? So that I would say for me was the biggest thing. Like when I first made that transition of, okay, I'm not going to have that guaranteed paycheck, right? That security, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I shifted my mindset to, wow, I no longer have a limit to my potential. So
Hashtag that part. That part, all of it. Oh man. There is something around, so something that I feel like you offered me as my coach in that season was, and I say this ad nauseum, often when I talk about the benefits of coaching, but it's also what I received when I worked with you. And it's like non-judgmental support and accountability. And non-judgmental, you might gloss over it, but that part is so important. It's so meaningful because doing something like transitioning out of your 9 to 5, um, into full-time entrepreneurship, into the realm of unpredictability, sometimes volatility, the ebbs and the flows, the roller coaster, all of the things. It's hard enough for the person who's even going there in their mind to consider it. But then when you have loved ones who mean well, but their risk tolerance
mm-hmm.
can't even handle the mere thought of you doing it, better yet, them doing it, right? It's just enough for them to try to save you from what they perceive as a bad decision, a wrong decision, or maybe even just like failure, right?
Right.
And so there's a lot that goes into other people's opinions, and there's it's a weighted opinion system too, because different people play different roles in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so the judgment coming from people who mean a lot to us sometimes is enough to keep us in places and spaces that are no longer serving us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the non-judgmental support and accountability that you offered, that true coaches offer, is something that I don't think you can ever put a price point on. And for me, I can speak to it from as a client and as a coach, that is imperative for people who are likely to invest in coaching with us,
Mm-hmm.
because it gives them the free reign to think big, to dream big, right? Without judgment, right?
Right.
There's no bias. It's like when she says partner, when we say partner, we
Yeah.
mean that. Like it's your world. I'm actually the co-pilot.
Yep.
We're going wherever you want to go. I got your back, right? And I know
Right.
that's a different experience, especially for high achievers who typically are the ones being that for everybody else, especially leaders.
Mm-hmm.
But coaching is, I mean, it's a life hack of all life hack, whether it's executive coaching, whether it's leadership coaching, whether it's life coaching. Coaching is a life hack of all hacks. And if I don't do anything before I take my last breath, I am going to preach the gospel of coaching. Everybody needs everybody that's trying to do something or go somewhere and face fears and do it scared, you need a coach. That's hands
Absolutely.
down. You need a coach. Okay, I'm off the soapbox on coaching for a second.
No.
um what no, I'm not. Let me go back. So what's something that you think people often misunderstand about investing in coaching?
Mm. Ooh. A few things.
Okay.
One, that I think the biggest misperception is that a coach is there to give you the answers.
Mm,
And in reality, that's really mentoring or consulting. Mentoring consulting tends to be high on telling and giving the answers, some teaching, sometimes doing it for you, and low on asking questions. It can be helpful in certain instances, but I'd say it's transactional, right? It's helpful for the transaction. But if you are someone that is looking to evolve and grow, transform, that's where coaching can be beneficial. Coaching is high on asking questions, low on telling, right? Asking those questions ignites the synaptic nerves in the brain, right? And so that, if it's inviting someone to think beyond their current way of thinking, they're going to hold on
mhm.
to whatever that answer is that they come up with. So I think that's like one of the biggest misperceptions. I've had some clients, during sessions where like, Barrhonda, you're not telling me things. You just keep asking me questions. It's like, exactly, right? Here to transform, right? Versus transact. So I would say that. Another misperception is, I'd say the price tag on coaching.
Period.
Some are like, what? It costs what? What do you mean? Why? Right. And if you think about the change that you want to experience, that you want to make true for yourself, and if you really think about how valuable that is to you, I encourage people to think of it from that way, right? If you put a price tag on the new narrative that you want for yourself, most likely the cost of coaching is going to be significantly lower than what that price tag is. So I would offer that too. But I think the main thing is that too, that they have to do the work. This isn't, coaching isn't intended to be, outsourcing the work that you need to do. It's having that partner to, help you to figure out affirm your vision, craft your strategy, hold you accountable, and be a cheerleader, right? And partner
Mhm.
as you're working that plan. But it's not to actually do it for you. Because again, it's about transforming, right? more than just the thing, but it's helping you to grow and transform as a person.
That part. Oh, so well said. Um, what would you say, from what you recall, if you can recall, how would you rate the plan that I came to you with?
Ooh. So, I being honest, I don't remember the details.
Okay.
Can't remember like the actual picture.
Sure.
However, I do remember you being very intentional. And so from that, I'm thinking you did do the work to think through, okay, these are all the things that I need to take care of. And I'm trying to honor like our confidentiality agreement too. But I
Sure.
remember there was another pocket that you were considering, um, another passion that you have. So I remember that. And, um, there was some space for you to think about, okay, what is really important for me? I'm curious about this. I'm passionate about this.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, you work the plan. That's really what counts. You work the plan. Um,
Mm-hmm.
got into your program, right? You decided to invest in your development in your craft so that you have the integrity, right? Or you felt a sense of integrity in doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
I think really that's what's most important. So I'd rather not put a grade on your plan, and more so invite you to grade how you feel about how you, the process that you went through.
I'll say this, and I tell people sometimes. I think I may even talk about it in the book. But one thing that I'll never forget is so. But there was a some time in between our chemistry call and our first session, and it may not have been. It may have been like a week or so. It wasn't a lot of time, but it was enough time for me in this brain of mine, this problem solving brain of mine, to continue working to try to solve this problem, even though I now had a coach, right? And so I was in a certain space when we had our chemistry call, still trying to figure some things out, right?
Mhm.
But by the time I got to my first session with you at that Starbucks, we started the session, and you had I guess whatever your go-to introductory um, I don't know if it's like documents or assessments, like
Uh-huh.
to kind of work through, right? And before we could even get to that, I ended up sharing that since we last spoke on our chemistry call, here's where I am. I've decided that I want to be a coach, and I want to be certified, right? I want to do it that way. And I need accountability with getting it done because I'm tired, right? And why this sticks out to me is because you had like your assessments papers and you kindly just, they were kind of like spread out, and you kindly just gathered them and set them to the side, and you said, well, I don't think we'll be needing these. We can move on to the next.
I love it when that happens.
And I tell people, it's like, for me, it kind of underscored the gift that I have in doing this kind of work, because I did it partly for myself. Like by the time I even came to you, I
Mhm.
knew what I wanted, right? I was clear on what I wanted. I had been doing the work, but I also was wise enough to know that if I was really going to see this thing through, I had to call in reinforcements. And that happened to be you. Everybody doesn't have the gift to process all these many moving pieces. Or sometimes it's not that you don't have the gift, sometimes you don't have the time.
Right.
Sometimes you're too close to it. There is something to be said for, a great coach who can listen to what you think is your scatterbrain and give it back to you in a way that's eloquent, logical, and sequential. And it's just enough to take your breath away. And it makes you feel seen, it makes you feel heard, it makes you feel sane. And it's
Yeah.
just like, yes, that. Like, why couldn't I come? Because you're too close to it. You're
Mhm.
you're just too close to it. Let us do what we do,
Right.
right? So that you can go do what you take that and go do what you need to do with it now that you have clarity. Um, so that part of our journey tickles me to no end because that's just typical type A, Danielle. I'm just like, I know this lady thinks she has her hands full working with me, but you were just always so kind and graceful and just in present with me in ways that most people are not for whatever reason. And I will always appreciate that about you. Another back down memory lane, if you can recall, what shifts did you witness in me in our time together?
Clarity and confidence.
Mm.
Right. So even when, you were declarative, all right, I'm going to be, a coach, you're human, right? So you're going to have those moments where you're like, okay, is this really the right path? And you reaffirmed for yourself, there was that. And then it was just cool seeing you go through the journey. And even when you were in your program and you would check in and, hey, here's how it's going, here's where I am, and I'm about to graduate. And just the growing confidence for you, that was just so cool. And your identity shift, right? From the work that you used to do, right?
Mhm.
You were internal, and becoming a coach is just like a caterpillar, right? Evolving into a butterfly.
Yeah.
That was so cool to see. And I think that's one of the benefits of being a coach,
I'll,
getting to witness others make that.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Yes, I couldn't agree more. And in thinking about the whole planning piece, so I definitely had a plan, right? And the plan evolved. You helped me kind of like tease it out and make some things make sense, and also kind of held a mirror that supported me in kind of like questioning, well, is that what is this part of the plan what I really want? Is there a different variation of it? Is this some like status quo thing that I'm thinking that I need to do? Do I really need to jump through that hoop? Those kind of thoughts. But one part of my plan was absolutely to go get certified, but it was also to have my job pay for it or pay for a part of it. And
Mhm.
so I share this because not all plans are created equal and not all plans go according to plan. And
Yes.
so I tell people to this day, like, I'm still waiting on my former employer to pay for my coaching certification. And I've been gone for 6 years, right? I definitely made the request. Um, and it never actualized. However, that didn't stop me from investing in what I wanted. Because if I was waiting for my former employer to pay for my certification, I might still be working there.
Hmm.
I might still be as miserable because I wasn't willing to, make the investment. And this is coming from somebody who, here's why this is important for me. This is coming from somebody who has 2 degrees and I got paid for both. I never paid to go to school. So
Mm.
this put me in a situation where it's like, well, how bad do you want it? And it's just like I want it bad, but I don't want to pay for it because I don't pay for school, right? This is my story. This is my lived experience. And
Right.
so when my back was against the wall and somebody had to pay for it, once I got confirmation that I had been accepted, it's just like, well, I have it. Do I want to pay for it out of pocket? No, I don't, right? But I want this certification because I have a plan, and my
Right.
plan is for coaching to free me from this 9 to 5. And so I made the investment. The
Mhm.
most I've ever spent on, well, at that time, up until then,
Mhm.
on like continued education or even like a certification. So I know I've had a number of conversations with persons who've expressed interest in coaching and have had sticker shock. I
Yeah.
get it, which is why we have conversations like this for
Mhm.
educational purposes, just so that you go into it knowing, like, expect to dig into your wallet,
Right.
expect to invest in your future, expect to invest in the growth and the transformation that your soul desires, right? This is one of those intangibles, but it can change your life. It can absolutely change your life.
Yeah.
So the plan, yeah, have a plan, but be willing to like adjust and pivot inside the plan, even though the plan is for you to pivot, out of your 9 to 5. Like
Mhm.
some internal pivoting is required as well. Um, let's see what else I want to talk about. You may have already shared this, but I'm going to ask it just in case we haven't teased it out. What would you say was one of the most powerful results of our coaching engagement, even if it wasn't external?
Powerful results.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing you on the screen right now, having this conversation with you, seeing your advertisement about your book launching. Um, so many, and even going back to when you finished your program and the pride that you had about that. Um, there are a lot of proud moments. I mentioned I'm proud for you, and there are many reasons, for that. So I think that's the coolest thing. Just being here with you now and knowing the backdrop, for that.
Yeah, yeah. As we wrap, what advice would you give someone who knows that they need a coach but they feel hesitant?
Mm, have a conversation. Have at least 3 conversations, right? Talk with someone that has worked with a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Talk with a couple of coaches. Doesn't mean you have to commit just yet, but just rather than sitting in silence, maybe suffering in silence, have some conversations. And and I would also say, in terms of making decisions, sometimes we make decisions from our gut, sometimes we make our decisions from our head, and we might get into analysis paralysis, which can delay progress. But allow yourself to just, have those conversations, and then just sit and um, notice what your body's telling you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, that if it's a decision of, okay, should I hire a coach? What is your mind telling you? What is your gut telling you? What is your heart telling you? There's going to be a lot of wisdom from there. But then also, as you vision for yourself, like, what's the story that I really want to have for myself? How important is this for me? And if it's
Mm-hmm.
really important, people make time, and they make a way for what's really important for them. And if you're at a point where you're like, yeah, I don't know, it costs too much, or, it might take too much time, I'd invite them to revisit the thing that they're saying they really want.
Mm-hmm.
Really want it.
Mm-hmm. Staying in that pocket, right? So let's say they've done that and they're like, okay, yes, coaching is for me. Now it's a matter of finding the right coach for me. What
Hmm.
advice would you give them around choosing a coach that's right for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we talked about the importance of the coaching relationship and chemistry. So I'd say give some thought to what type of coach would you feel comfortable being vulnerable with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And so that could be, and there's no judgment here. It could be, hey, I want a coach that looks like me. It could be, hey, I want a coach that doesn't look like me so I can get a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in terms of in coaching sessions, there's going to be feedback, right? Your coach is going to share some observations. Um, and, so think about, how do you receive feedback best? So is
Mm-hmm.
a coach that offers feedback where it's like direct, no chaser, or is a coach offering feedback that's sugar coated, or maybe it's in between, it's sugar free, right? It still tastes kind of decent, but it's clear and kind. So think about that. Think about how you learn best. Think about what type of a approach, because coaches, they do come in every shape, size, and color, right? They have different styles, different personalities. So first, think about what would be a good match for you, and then have a conversation with, I always recommend 2 to 3 coaches, and just, see where you feel a sense of chemistry. When you know, you will know.
Yeah, yeah. I love the part that you said about like the feedback. Because I've had clients and prospective clients um challenge my delivery, which is not abrasive at all. And they're like, "Oh, just tell me, just say it."
Yeah.
And it's like, I am. You just don't like how I'm giving it to you, right? And it's like, for me, and with me, my thing is, you can go just about anywhere in the world and have people handle you any kind of way. You, I don't offer that.
Right.
I don't offer that by design. Like, this is one of the few places that you'll probably be able to show up and be vulnerable, open, honest, and transparent, and not feel less than after we've had our exchange. And that is by, it's who I am first and foremost, but it's
Right.
by design. Like, it's what part of what makes me a phenomenal coach. And so I now recognize that there are some people that do not work well or don't appreciate my style of delivery, and that's okay too. And I
Yes.
think that's important for you to go find the type of coach that is going to be that for you. And I am okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think that's very, very important. Last but not least, for somebody that's planning their own six-figure pivot, what is one shift they should make this week?
Ooh, one shift they should make this week. Mental shift, starting to think about why yes. Because if they hadn't made the leap, most likely they've been mentally focusing on why not. So easy thing, it doesn't cost anything. I say every day, write down, make a list, make it visible. Every day, write down one reason why yes.
Why, yes. I couldn't have thought of a better way to end this conversation than why, yes. You know what? You have done it again. I don't know what to do with you. What am I going to do with you besides never let you go? Oh
Oh,
my gosh. Why? Yes. That, coach,
coach.
you didn't have to do us like that. You did not have to do us like that. Listen, I know it's been an hour on the dot. We did amazing. Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
time,
Thank
your
you.
heart, your wisdom, your insight, all of the things going back down memory lane with me. I am forever grateful for you. For anybody that's watching, if you're catching a replay, type replay in the comments wherever you may see this, and I'll come back through and show you some love. If you are not already on my email list, there is more of this to come. I have several more conversations with more heavy hitters in my network planned for the rest of this month. I'm also hosting the virtual book discussion at the end of the month, as well as a masterclass on how to transition out of your 9 to 5 without regret. To stay in the know on all of the things, go to www.daniellethecoach.com/subscribe to join my email list and stay in the loop. Coach, that's all I got. I appreciate you. If I can be of service to you in any way, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Thank you. I appreciate you and super proud for you. And I'm always here for you.
Thank you. I'll see you next time.
Bye.